Shabbat Shalom. I am Rabbi Simon Altaf, your host today, and today I'm going to present the true Hebrew Israelites. What color were they? What ethnicity? And where are they going to return from? Obviously, I'm not going to cover everything, but I will cover some important aspects of the people of Hebrew Israelites and ancestry especially. And also, I have been asked by many friends before to explain these things, but as you know that there are appointed times and places for these things to be revealed, and I feel that now the time has come for us to look at these details and to decide where we stand with these things, because this ultimately will affect our understanding of who we are, and this will also affect the way we worship Elohim, our Almighty Creator, and also obviously Yehoshua, who is Elohim. So my friends, I'm going to take you into the ancient understanding, or at least the modern understanding as well, of what people think. Most people, as you know today, think that the Hebrew Israelites, or the 10 tribes, they migrated to Europe. A lot of people on the internet have been writing books saying that if you want to find the Hebrew Israelites, you go to Denmark and places like, for instance, England. They say that Denmark, the Danish people live. The Danish people, they are the Danites, and you'll hear about England being the Ephraimites. You'll hear about America being the Menashites, and you'll hear also other things such as these. And these mainly come from European or Western writers who feel that the Hebrew Israelites of the 10 tribes migrated to these lands in Europe, and they became many big nations after that. There is truth, there is some truth to that, but it is not the truth. Because as you will see in this segment, that I will prove to you very, very quickly that majority of these theories are false. They are not true. They do not fit with European lands or Western lands as we thought they did. However, it will be wrong to say that entirely the Western lands don't have any presence of Hebrew Israelites. They do have presence of Hebrew Israelites, but what color are they? Are they white Europeans, American white people, or are they black Europeans, black American people, or are they Asian people like me from the South Asian sides like India, Pakistan, and those regions, you know, like for instance China and other Asian nations. So it's very important that we understand that. I feel that a lot of people who have been writing on these things have been either writing with a clouded mind or a certain bias, or perhaps they just simply don't know that what they're doing is right or wrong. It's just a opinion, and I simply take that as an opinion. But now I'm going to set forth some really hard, strong suggestions, and you will have to examine them before you reject them. And if any of you want to reject what I suggest, you're welcome to do so, because you can take these as my opinion, or not just my opinion, my convictions of who I am, what I represent, and what I'm stating to be truth. I am myself of the Kohanim tribe, Levite. So what I state here is to me, for all purposes, for all understanding of myself, from where I came from my background, an Islamic background, where Yehoshua, our master, called me out 12 years ago. I know what I state to be the truth. However, your opinion may differ. That's understandable. We can sometimes agree to disagree and still not fight over these things. By certainly debates, we can debate these things out. So I'm going to show you from the Bible that what most of people are writing about Hebrew Israelites is not only wrong, but very wrong. Why? Because Hebrew Israelites, first of all, are not European people. European in the sense, when I say European, I'm excluding the races that inhabited Europe or migrated to Europe, like Indians going to Europe, Pakistanis, or the Africans going to Europe. That's what I mean. I mean the early inhabitants of Europe, 7th century Europe, 8th century Europe, or 1000 CE Europe, or 2000 CE Europe. We're talking about the Europeans after the time of the Messiah. The majority of these we know, many of these Europeans in England, in France, in Germany, in Denmark, for instance, we know that these were Caucasian people, they were white people, they were people of races that had come to these islands For instance, we know that the Anglo-Saxons, they came to these islands in England. We know that the Normans came to these islands. So how can they be Hebrew Israelites? A lot of people assume that Anglo-Saxons are the sons of Isaac. This is not necessarily so. This is an assumption. That assumption cannot be proved by the Bible. Let me prove that to you. If you look at the map, and here I bring a map to you, and here you see on the map is what today people term is the African continent, and on top of the African continent we'll see here England, and we'll see on the right of this map Russia in the colors over here, and if we go to the left of the map we'll see United States of America, Canada. Now at the bottom south we'll see Brazil, we'll see Spain over here just above Israel to the west, and we'll see Algeria, we'll see Chad, Nigeria. These are all states west of Israel. Now looking at the prophecy of Hosea chapter 11, which I want to point you to, verse 10, it states very clearly that they shall walk after the Lord, in the Hebrew Yud-He-Vav-He, and it ends with, the children shall tremble from the west. This is a prophecy that many writers assume means western islands or western lands such as America, such as for instance England, Greenland, Western Europe as a whole. That is not entirely accurate, because if you look at the translation, and I have in my hand the Abrahamic Faith Hebraic Study Scriptures, if we look at the translation there, and I point out here in the translation that the terminology west, which is misunderstood and misapplied in this particular structure, as I'm showing you in Hosea chapter 11, I show from my Bible that I've translated that they shall walk after Yud-He-Vav-He, he shall roar like a lion, and when he shall roar, then the sun shall come trembling up from the sea. Now the Hebrew word here that is translated west can also be translated sea. Now you have to understand that originally when the Hebrew Israelites came back from Egypt, they did not come from the west. They actually crossed a sea, and if we go down here on the map, you will notice that the region which we know is the Saudi Arabian region here, we have the Gulf of Aqaba, which they would have crossed. I want to point out something, that all these regions that you see here, the African continent, including Israel, at one time was part of this continent. Israel was not west, Israel was not east as such, Israel was simply called Africa. Everything about Israel was African. So we have to understand that when Yud-He-Vav-He, the Elohim of Israel, when he's calling out his sons, where is he calling them out from? It is very clear that if you look at this pin here, which is right in the center of Israel, that the western lands of Israel was not England, was not Europe. Europe is up here, north of Israel. They are north. Look at the map. They are not west, and they are not across the sea. They are across many seas, plural. And we have to understand that although the word can be used west and the sea, the only sea that they crossed to come back to Israel when they were in Egyptian captivity was the Sea of Reeds, what today we identify as the Gulf of Aqaba, and some people identify as the Red Sea. Either way, if we look, the western lands are African lands. My friends, Hebrew Israelites were never white. Yes, there were some albinos amongst them. Albinos means that they were born with a white hue or white skin, but they were still Africans. Now they were dispersed into these African lands, and from here they migrated into practically all parts of the world. Yes, they do exist in America as well. Yes, they do, but they are Africans. They were taken there by the slave trade, the Atlantic slave trade. If we come back here, how can the sons, the children of Israel, walk back from the west if they are never in England? And what is west then according to the Bible? According to the Bible, my friends, west is the African continent. That is the majority of the continent where they're going to come out of. Well, you might challenge my thesis that how can it be? What about England? What about America? Well, if we look at America, today the black people in America who have lost their identity, culture, their habits, They think they are American just because they were living there for 100 years or 150 years. But what you have to understand, my friends, is that they were not originally Americans. Because America was inhabited by a very different people before the Europeans went there to conquer America. America was inhabited by different kinds of people. One of those people, as you know, are the Red Indians. But apart from the Red Indians, there were also black people there at that time. But coming back to this segment, there were people taken in this Atlantic slave trade. They were taken to England, they were taken to Belgium, they were taken to Denmark, they were also taken to America and many other nations. So the blacks that ended up in America today, who call themselves American, don't even realize that they were not originally American, they are originally Africans. So it would be proper to call them African Americans. African Americans have a true heritage with the Elohim of Israel. They indeed are the Hebrew Israelites of ancient times. How do we know that? How can I prove that? Very easy. From the very same scriptures I hold in my hand, the Bible. If we look at Hosea chapter 11 verse 11, it says that they will tremble out of Mitzrayim. Now this is out of the AFNHSS Bible I hold in my hand. What does this Mitzrayim word mean? It means people of black skin. Mitzrayim is a Hebrew word used for Egypt, which means black face. It doesn't mean a white face, it doesn't mean an Asian looking face like mine, but it does mean a black face. However, we know that the common ancestors of many nations were the black people, Africans, the common ancestors. So if they're going to be trembling out of Mitzrayim and it says as a dove out of Assyria, shouldn't you be asking the question, where is Mitzrayim? Where is Assyria? Well, if you look here, Assyria is this part of the region where my stick is now, pointing to Iran, pointing to Iraq, pointing to Turkey, pointing to Arabia. These were the regions, and also going further east towards India, Pakistan. We have to understand that these were the regions that were occupied by the Assyrians, and they were ruling these regions. Well, if they are coming out of those regions alongside the west, and Mitzrayim, we know Mitzrayim is here. If we look at Egypt here, we know that it is directly not only west but south of Israel, southwest. We have Libya southwest, Algeria west. We have Mauritania. So we have Nigeria, we have Mali, we have Sudan. We have all these nations that are sitting west of Israel, and then the next nation that is west of Israel here is Spain. Spain, you know, that had a large number of Sephardic Jews. So they were also part of the Israelites. And the other parts of western lands, Brazil. Brazil has a large number of Hebrew Israelites. We have America. America has a large number, and even Canada has Hebrew Israelites. But these Canada and United States of America are the further western lands. Immediate west to Israel is Africa. So they were driven out, and we know from history that they ended up in African lands. From Africa we know that they migrated to India, and if we trace the common ancestors of the Indians in the past, you will find out that the common ancestors were black. The one common ancestor was black. And the other thing is, even in China, even as distant as China here in the east, the common ancestor to the Chinese, who today are yellow, was actually a black man. And I would suggest to you very strongly that the Hebrew Israelites were black. The customs today of the African nations, you will find, was very particularly linked to Hebrew Israelite customs. Now, this may come as a shock to many of you. This may come as a shock to many of you because you've been taught that, you know, the children of Israel are in England, and they are in Belgium and in Denmark, and they are the white folks or the Europeans. No, they are not. In fact, if you find the practices, one of the practices that the Hebrew Israelite customs has was a polygamy. That was a practice that you find predominantly in the east, Pakistan, India, Iran, and also in the west, meaning Algeria, Sudan, Nigeria. These practices still continue over there. Even though they have gone through many religions over here, Islam rules dominantly in many of these parts, and there's Christianity, but these people have never given up their culture. The Nigerians, for instance, Christians, don't stop having two wives. They still have two wives, many of the people. even though the Western Europeans reject the idea of having two wives and they want monogamous single relationships, you find that the Western people, including the American people, are stuck in their monogamous past, which was from the Romans and from the Greeks. And the past, not only from the Romans and the Greeks, that one attribute shows us that it was also a common habit of the Grecians to have a wife and have a boyfriend. They were into homosexuality as well. So we find the same situation in England, in America. Today homosexuality is given the thumbs up. People are happy with homosexuality. They're not happy with polygamy. Why? Because these people were never part of the Hebrew Israelites. They kept their customs and they still sneer at the customs of Hebrew Israelites. Hebrew Israelites, on the other hand, they don't have a problem with single marriages or dual marriages. Why? Because they were Hebrew Israelites. These are part of the laws of the Bible. When a brother dies, then the living brother has to take on the widow to give her sons. Where's the widow going to go? If the widow doesn't get taken over by the son as a wife, as a second wife, where is she going to go? There was no social security system. There was no support system for them. And the divorcee, where were the divorcees going to go? Today the divorcees in the West can get social security. The widows can get social security. Nevertheless, these customs that still inhabit these areas of the east and the west of Israel, you must understand that they tell us something about these people's culture and ancient lands. For instance, if you go to Ghana, today, down here, you will find that the Ghanaians have a tribe called the Ashanti. The Ashanti tribe are from an area they identify in Israel called Ashan. Ashan is a Hebrew word that means smoke, and it relates to the burning. Why? Because when the Jerusalem was burning, these people left Israel and they ended up in these African regions. These Ashanti people, they identify their Almighty Creator as someone called Yeme, or they have the word spelled is N-N-Y-E-M-E, O-N-Y-E-M-E, on Yeme, but they don't pronounce the O and the N. So the Yeme, the word M, the letter M, is interchangeable in the ancient Ashanti language with W. There would be Yahweh. Yahweh is a term for Yud-He-Vav-He, which many people pronounce like myself, Yahweh. Some of you pronounce as Yahuwah. However, that tells us something about the Ashanti people in Africa. Ashanti people are Hebrew people. They still have the custom of the woman separating after for the menstruation period, 7 days. They still have the custom of circumcising their children. But show me these customs in the Americans. Show me these customs in the British people. You won't find them. They don't exist. Because these people in the British Islands, in the American islands, the people who are today Americans, and I'm talking about the Caucasians, white people, they are quite happy to live monogamous lives, and they're quite happy to live in non-religious lives, such as women don't have to separate, they don't like getting circumcised. These were Hebrew customs, and these customs are despised in the West. Yet these customs are not despised in the East, in Pakistan, in Iran, in all these other countries. Whether the people are Muslim or not is irrelevant. Even if they were not Muslim, they don't really care. They will still circumcise their children. So we know from biblical history, if you go to Hosea 11:11, Hosea 11:10, these people who are coming as trembling from the West are no other than the Hebrew black people. So my friends, if you look at Isaiah chapter 11 verse 11, where Yahweh talks about bringing them out the second time, Yahweh says very clearly what lands He's calling them out of. He talks about the land of Mitzrayim, talks about Assyria. He doesn't say, I'm going to call you out of England. But I know that there are Hebrew Israelites in England, in small numbers. There are Hebrew Israelites in America, possibly in larger numbers, being the black people, and the black people who are mixed in with other people in America. So, yes, Hashem, He will call many people out. Yes, He will. But the original Hebrew Israelites are black people. Yehoshua, our master, commanded us in Matthew chapter 15 verse 24, says, go and seek the lost sheep, the prostituting sheep of the house of Israel. If we are not doing that today, then our being in Christianity or whatever religion we want to call ourselves in is a waste of time. Our goal and our mission is to go and teach Torah and reconcile those people back to the Elohim of Israel here. And if you're just, all you're doing is reconciling the people back to your denomination and denominational agendas and views, and the 38,000 denominations that Christianity has, then I'm afraid you failed the mission. You cannot be called a disciple of Yahushua, the Master. If you're a disciple of Yahushua, the Master, you'll be teaching Torah to the people. You'll be reconciling the people back to Israel, both spiritually, and one day will come that they will be physically reunited back to Israel. Yahweh even said so far that He will raise up people even when they are dead in those lands, and He will take them back. So my friends, I'd like to thank you. Your host, Rabbi Simon Altaf. If you wish to know more, I suggest you get the Hebraic Study Bible, Abrahamic Faith, Netzarim, Hebraic Study Scriptures. This will help you in your quest not only to teach and study Torah, but also to identify the real people. This is your call now, as it was one day from the Master, to go and reach out to the lost sheep of the house of Israel, who were not only prostituting back then, but many still are prostituting today, into false religions, paganism, and all sorts of wrong things. And when we get back to Torah and the Messiah, we reject all of that and we come back to the living Elohim, Yud He Vav He. Thank you for listening. Shalom, shalom.